So happy to have you here. I have my first sip, and I will tell you, starting with Guardrails, I don't drink coffee after 4 unless I cheat. But you guys voted on 6 o'clock p.m., and the majority of you are from I shouldn't say from you guys, but when you look at our map for our community and our group, a large part of it's in California. So a big part of you are from Phoenix and the California area. So it's early enough that you're allowed to have coffee. Barb would be very unhappy with me if I had too much. But we've got a lot to get started. I'm going to go ahead and hit a question that we hit real quickly, and then I'll do a couple other introductions. So, one of the great questions that I got, and I will never have Cup of Joe or anything that we try to do be cryptic.
Yeah.
Some of this has to be very
Want to
open
make it
and
louder?
some of this has to be very open and honest, just about who we are and what we do and where we are. And so the question was, when I mention guardrails, am I speaking about administrative policy or is there something else to it? And it's a great question. The answer is, in my life, there are both. There are written policies of guardrails that I have put into place. Most of those are done through legal documents, trust, things of that nature. What I like to talk about is letters of intentions, but there's some of them that I have in my life. In fact, you all have guardrails. We've had them our whole life. For most of us in this room, we've seen those guardrails appear over time. For instance, my coffee pot has a guardrail. When I was younger, you left the coffee pot on, it stayed on. And there were house fires because things caught on fire, it overheated. Some of you will remember that, John. I know you will. Along the way, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 years ago, things change quickly sometimes. All of a sudden, the coffee pot turns off after 2 hours. And the majority of the time, it's a nuisance, but it's a regulated guardrail, something that keeps me out of trouble. The majority of time when I talk about guardrails, they are not things that slow me down. They're not things that try to control my driving. They're things they're just in case. And that's really where they are. And so I hope that answers that question. We're going to talk a lot about guardrails. Every time we have the show, there will be a theme. And the theme for tonight is guardrails. In fact, I did what I always do. If somebody asks me a question that I can't answer, I create a checklist or a worksheet to say, here's how I think about it. And that's really, really, really important as you think about aging with clarity, in my opinion. I have been in an industry, the financial services industry, where there are living legends among us. And one of the accounting firms that I deal with is in Lafayette, Indiana. And Ron Huth, Huth, was 78 years old, had been retired for 20 years. The last time somebody came in and said, what would Ron do? And that's the amount of respect and credibility that that gentleman had. I've told my team that I want to make sure they never ask what Joe would do, because things change. That a lot of what I use in my 38-year career didn't exist 38 years ago. I don't want people to ask what I would do. I do want them to ask about how I would think about it. And that's truly what guardrails really are. I want to be able to maintain my thought process and how I think. So there's a bunch of you that are on here that do different things that are different parts of my life. Latoya, you will see there in the blue. Latoya is one of the people at Wayne State. She's working on her PhD. This is what she does academically. It's what she studies. So we feel very blessed to have partnered with Wayne State. Josh Nelson couldn't be here with us tonight. He is an elder care attorney, president of the Elder Bar of Georgia. And we work together to try to come up with solutions and things of that nature to be able to help people guide themselves in what's going on in aging with clarity. I've got to be really clear about two things, and then I'll turn it over and you guys can start asking questions. And as a community, we'll do the best to provide our answers. First of all, I am not here out of academic education or training. I'm not a doctor. This is not a diagnosis, and I need you to be aware of that. I'm here after 38 years of watching people succeed and sadly fail. And after those 38 years, I wanted to make sure it wasn't something that happened to my family. I went looking for a solution for me, to be quite honest. And it's my nature is to share. And so we created this community and a tool called Legacy Lock um, that was really a replica of the solution that I created for me. Things that I learned from the more than 2,500 families that I've taken care of over the last 38 years. So that's one thing. The second thing, some of you that are on here come from that family that I take care of. So I am the managing partner of the Financial Enhancement Group. We manage a lot of money, more than $1 billion. I've got 41 people on my team. But you need to understand, we're not talking anything at all about the Financial Enhancement Group or financial services tonight. Aging with Clarity and Legacy Lock are totally separate, have nothing to do with the Financial Enhancement Group. I just happened to be a part of both of them. So I wanted to make that real clear before we started so there wasn't any confusion. So, Latoya, I will ask you, is there anything you'd like to share now that you're here? She is working on her PhD, folks. And if you've never been involved with that, I taught at Purdue University for 7 years. I watched people go through what she's going through. And so this is like having an accountant with us on April 14th. You have no idea the pressure she's under. So, Latoya, what do you got?
Yeah, well, I'm just happy to be here. I almost forgot because I was just writing and writing and writing. I got in the groove and I looked up and I was like, oh shoot, it's 5:50. So I got to get on with Joe, but I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to be able to answer any questions that anyone has of me. I don't know how many of you have been through the classrooms or how many of you are on the school platform for Aging with Clarity, but I am in I forget the name of the classroom that I'm in, Joe. Which
You're
class?
in the preventive part.
Preventative part, yes.
Latoya is our save the bacon
And
phone call.
I was coming to that. Yes. Yes.
Well,
And I will be
tell them
I'll
what
be
it
heading
is.
up Save Your Bacon phone calls for Joe for the Aging with Clarity. So, if you ever have any questions or any concerns about what you should or shouldn't do, sometimes we get these phone calls or we get these emails or we get text messages or contacts and we wonder if it's legitimate. Should I respond? What should I do with it? How should I proceed? I am here for your questions and I have answers for your needs.
Latoya and I have a difference of opinion, and it comes down to this. It comes down to what you see the most is what you understand and resonate with the most. And it's a big rule inside of guard rules that the guardrails rather, one of the things that I want to make sure in my life is that it's my risk profile where my risk is assessed. What I decide is safe. I climbed Kilimanjaro. I've climbed the Grand Canyon rim to rim. I like to scuba dive. I intentionally with sharks. My mother is on here. And believe me, her risk profile and mine are different, right? So she looks at this through the lens of you've got to be crazy. And I want to make sure that somebody is helping me make decisions as I age, if that's ever necessary. And the hope is that it's not. But if it ever happens, I want somebody to look at it through my lens, not theirs. And so, what I've seen in 38 years of being in this industry is it's not what you see on 60 Minutes. It's not somebody scamming you out of money that concerns me. It is what concerns Latoya. And it is very real. We pay a fortune for security on all of the people's money that we manage, and you wouldn't believe the number of people who try to confiscate your funds. There are bad people that are out there. So if you ever get an email or if you ever get especially a text and you're not sure what it is, most people will not call their son. Most people will not call their somebody that's close to them because there's a little bit of concern and frustration. But I do want you to call an anonymous number in Detroit, Michigan, and talk to a young lady named Latoya and say, "Hey, is this legit?" She has the technology and the experience to go, "No, they don't ask for your password." I spent 25 years of my life on the radio. 25 of those years, I said, the IRS does not call. Do not take a phone call from the IRS. And then COVID hits. And now the IRS calls, right? Which is why I can't tell you not to do what I would do. Just think, I want people to have a process in place so they would think like you would have thought. What you deem to be right is what you need to be able to carry forward in life to preserve your financial dignity. And that's really what this is all about. I did not want that dignity lost. So, with that, I will open it up to questions. You guys can ask away. We have 450 questions submitted.
Oh, wow.
We're growing this community to about 15 new members a day that are joining. So feel free to share it with your friends. It should be over 5,000. I do my best to reply, as you've seen, when you guys put in individual questions and responses. Little by little, that will become impossible. That's okay. But share it with your friends, but ask the questions. We've got plenty of questions if you don't have them, but I always taught them at Purdue, the ones that show up get the best attention. So y'all are up. What would you like to talk about or no? Nobody wants to be first.
I'll go. I once got a call from the Internal Revenue Service. My name is John Checky. I've been a CPA since 1976, a certified scuba diver since 1962 at the Hackensack YMCA. Have a nice day. Yes, I am 78. Rock on. This morning, some guy who was 83 said, "When are you going to retire?" I said, "2 weeks after I die." But one day, my phone rang, and the Internal Revenue Service was on the line back when they had people actually call people. And they said, "You owe us $109,000." And being me, I laughed out loud. And people who know me, and Joe has known me for about 8 or 9 years, I said, "Well, they could have made, I'll be proud to owe you $109,000. How did I do that?" They said, "Well, someone who owned a hotel put you down as their treasurer." I said, "Yes, I remember reading their, and listen to this really closely, reading their corporate minutes. And if you are a CPA or an attorney or just a regular person, and somebody has access to your name, your credentials, you want to be sure and read their corporate minutes, underline that." So I saw that, tendered my letter of resignation. Also, I'd helped this guy avoid a 115-year jail sentence during a criminal tax case because I am a tax expert witness back then. But the point of this is this. If you don't know what you're doing, call somebody else who does. That'd be point number one. Point number two, keep a civil tongue in your head. Point number three, take a deep breath. Those who are lucky enough to know when you die, you're going to heaven. You really have no worries because you know we're already going. And Latoya, I have no kidding, counsel with people going through your egomaniac process, talking to the egomaniacs known as PhD committee people, and it's hilarious. I hope they also taught you how to get a job after you get to be anointed, because that's the most critical part of becoming a PhD. All kidding aside.
We go through a lot of that. There's actually a whole class on it, and then there are multiple workshops that I've attended. So I think the academy has graduated to where they're understanding that that's very important. Teaching students about the job search process, and not only in academia, but just because all of us don't want to be academics, right? So, but yes, they do that. They do that now, John.
That's
Latoya
a
and
monster
Dr.
improvement.
Latoya and Dr. Peter Lichtenberg. Peter's kind of her mentor. So oddly enough, this is just how God kind of works. Peter got his PhD at Purdue. And then for those of you not near Indiana, Michigan's just due north. And so
Hmm.
he meandered a few hours to Wayne State, and was head of their gerontology department. But he was one of the first people to study behavioral finance as it relates to gerontology. So you'll see me cite him a lot. I am not 100% supportive of the academic world, as Latoya is well aware of, but I do like the work that they do, and I'll read a report from something that comes out of Harvard or Stanford or somewhere else, and the first thing I do is ship it off to Peter and say, "Hey, do you concur?" And so I've got a meeting of the minds, my own little union that I tried to put together. Nothing is ever going to fix common sense when it comes to some of this. And what John said
Yes.
is really very clear. Take a breath. Take a
Yes.
breath, right? Um, it's the more you can write things down, the better off you're going to be if for no other reason it takes time to write it down, right? Anytime a human has the ability to make a decision on the spot, emotion is going to come into play.
Mhm.
Feelings, as in your health, are going to come into play. And Richard, we're going to have good days and we're going to have bad days, aren't we, buddy? And when we feel bad or our emotional state is bad, some of those decisions that you can make can really rock your world. And when I talk about guardrails, that's really what I'm trying to do. My definition of my guardrail is to let me do as much as I can do without causing serious, irreparable harm to myself or someone else. Right? That's kind of the guardrail I put in. Now I'm 59, right? I'm not 78, John. I'm 59, but I'm already watching some of these issues that come up in my life be a little bit more complex. And the whole thing about aging with clarity, if you've paid attention to the underlying message, is that judgment goes before memory loss occurs. Right?
Mhm.
Anybody who will knows me will tell you that my memory is fine. I believe my memory is fine, but as we talked about inside of the subtle shift, one of the hardest things to be able to deal with is that mirror part. We can never see our own challenges, our own issues. I'll give you a funny example of this. One of my dear friends is a CPA, annoys my wife to death. He will talk about anything at any time, just absolutely nonstop. So we have a golf tournament, and this other guy shows up. He's a guest, and this guy really is quite annoying. I will give you that. He's quite annoying. The things that he said were just rude, way out of line, way out of place. A little golf game and a lot of beer will get people into trouble. And my buddy, the one that will never quit talking, comes up and looks at Barb and says to my wife, I cannot believe how rude this guy is. He just keeps talking. And Barb looked at me like, is he absolutely, this is what he does every day. And that's the mirroring problem. We can't see something that occurs in our own lives, but we can walk into a room and clearly see when somebody else's judgment is starting to slip. That's
Mhm.
just that's just the reality of life. All right,
So
questions. Go ahead,
Joe,
Laura.
I wanted to just piggyback on that. Just a couple of things. So the first one is that I frequently tell people that, right? So we have this acronym that we use called pressure. And one of the things that we always talk about in this acronym with the E in pressure, PRE, we talk about, I mean, it's not an acronym, it's a mnemonic device, right? So we take each letter. And the first E in pressure is for emotion. And so what a lot of times what people want you to do is, as Joe said, like act before you stop and think, because they want you to act out of emotion. So either they want you to act out of fear, they do something where they want you to act out of love for a loved one. They want you to, hurry up and act before you think. So I definitely agree with Joe and John to stop, take a breath, think about it, and reach out to someone. And as Joe said before, with Save Your Bacon, if you're concerned that you don't want to call a family member or someone that you know because you don't want them thinking that they're going to come in and save you, or you don't want them getting ideas that you can't handle things on your own, you can always call the Save Your Bacon number and we are here for you. And then the next thing, something Joe said, like the memory not going first, but kind of like the decision making process, or the vulnerability to making bad decisions that put you at risk. Something that we know from the research is that as early as kind of like subjective cognitive decline. Now, this is before Anyone can even pick up any cognitive changes with any instruments, any measures. We have something that we call MCI, that's mild cognitive impairment, where you can pick that up with some of the measures that they use. If you've ever been to the doctor and they kind of like did an assessment, they can pick up MCI with that assessment. They can't pick up subjective cognitive decline. This is when people may feel that there may be something going on. It's very subjective, but there's no other clinical indicators that there is. Financial vulnerability or susceptibility to being exploited increases at that stage. There is some research now showing that this susceptibility to being exploited is actually an early, it's not the other way around where it's kind of like the cognitive decline, dementia, and then the susceptibility. It actually works the opposite, where this susceptibility to being exploited is kind of like an indicator that there may be some cognitive issues down the line. So as Joe said, I just want to reinforce that this is what comes first. So, just wanting everyone to be aware that you don't have to be demented or, have diagnosed cognition issues or, sometimes, as we age, we just start to be more susceptible due to the way our decision making processes work.
So we call it the subtle shift in aging with clarity. And that's really what it is. And I know none of this really impacts a lot of us, but it is something that is important to get. So when I looked at those 450 questions that were submitted, they kind of broke into 7 categories. And the category far and wide, the number one was one of you that was either taking care of a parent or a spouse that had a diagnosis. And it needs to be very, very clear that you have our absolute empathy. Barb and I lived through it with her grandma. One of the people that I was as close to as you can imagine as a grandparent. And grandpa got Alzheimer's, and grandma was just hell bent on taking care of him. And we got to watch that and live it through very, very close context. My uncle got Alzheimer's. We were able to watch that and the pain that comes from it. That's not what we're really talking about on here, but what we are talking about, some of the strategies, some of the solutions can be used to help minimize some of the financial dignity challenges. It's not going to restore somebody's cognitive capacity. My concern is 38 years of taking care of other people's money, watching them. They literally raised me. I got into the industry before I could have a securities license. It was a couple months before I turned 21, and you had to be 21 to get a securities license. And the people that I started working with 2 weeks before the crash back in 1987 became like my grandparents. First, my parents, my grandparents. They worked with me and Barb. I watched them raise their kids so that I knew how to raise my kids. I watched them evolve over time, and then I began to watch the challenges that I didn't expect. I watched people that I'd known for decades begin to do things that they wouldn't have done 10 years ago. And that's really when I went on the search to try to understand what this subtle shift is, where it comes from, and what to do about it. And that's really where some of the guardrails that I talk about come into place. They're not things that confine me. They're things that keep me on the path that I choose to be on, that I want to be on. So again, I'll go back to you guys now. What questions do you have that you would like to throw out and talk to the community about?
Joe, one of the questions that came in, one of the folks on with us tonight said they couldn't come off mute. But why do you say Happy Thanksgivings?
That's a very nice lob ball, as they would say in the softball world. Thank you for throwing that up. I want you to picture this.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Just picture this. I am well aware that not everybody has the Thanksgiving that I have. I understand that. And if you're one of those people, then just kind of view a Norman Rockwell painting for me, if you will. I grew up with my mom, her five brothers and sisters, family, cousins all over the place, great food, a family that had a lot of education and not a lot of money. I loved Thanksgiving much more than Christmas because there were no presents. It was how do you put a meal together? How do you break bread? How are you grateful for the things that are going on? And that is it's my favorite holiday far and away. I know we're at the week of the 4th of July and I love the celebration, but um, Thanksgiving is what it really matters to me. And what became tragic in my career was watching the number of Thanksgivings that were ruined over family chaos because of cognitive decline, or what I call the subtle shift, more so than anything else. I watched people who had never argued over anything suddenly argue over what mom and dad were doing at the moment. It wasn't, the nightly news would tell you that this is over the money, but it really wasn't the money as much as it was the confusion. How do I help a person that put diapers on me, that I love, that I care about, that I want to be respectful of and offer dignity to, and suddenly I've got to take care of them, and the view of me taking care of them and the view of my brother taking care of them, maybe two entirely different things. If I don't have a living, breathing place to go to say, hey, here's what dad wanted, or here's what mom wanted. And so in our world, people take that and they think, well, that means my funeral. Oh, no, there is so much more to life than dying. And that's really the problem. There is this gray space or the subtle shift. It's people living longer and longer, not individually, but collectively. And when I say that, this is one of the things to tell your friends at church. It's one of the things to share with your kids. You hear this conversation of life expectancy and us living longer. If you asked my kids, and you can only imagine growing up in my household what it would be like, because everything is a lesson. We're in Key West, it's Easter Sunday, and I take the girls to a church that had stained glass windows. That's how I judged it, because Barb and I got married in a church with stained glass windows and I missed them. And we walk into this church and we're looking at the stained glass windows and we look at the bottom, and I said, girls, what do you notice? And the oldest was 12 and she looked at me like I was an idiot. And I get it. But the bottom line was those six windows, the youngest donor was 95 years old at the time of the donation. The oldest was 104, and it was 1900 when the church was built. Right? These are people that saw the 1790s. It's not that we are living longer that is going to create a challenge for us in aging with clarity and the people that we know and love. It's that more of us are living longer. So a thing that has been totally ignored, what that third chapter of life, if you will, or that fourth chapter of life, the subtle shift has been ignored because not a lot of us got there. And now the majority of us are getting there. And we're going through that period of time where we have those challenges. And if we don't have guardrails in place, eventually somebody is going to step in and try to supersede our own ability to make decisions. And quite frankly, I'm a control freak. I do not like the idea that somebody else is going to make decisions for me in a way that doesn't match a decision that I would have wanted to make for myself. So by creating guardrails and these processes, I have done my best to be able to solve for that problem. Happy Thanksgiving to me is my end result of what happens when I do this right for families. And if you walked into my office on the board, you would see in my scribbling, because I don't write neatly, Happy Thanksgiving. And people will come in and go, Joe, it's Easter. And I go, yeah, but I want your kids to have a happy Thanksgiving. I want something to happen to me while I'm alive, while I'm gone, whenever. I still want my girls, my grandkids, I want everybody to get together, break bread, and be grateful, share memories and experiences not argue over China dolls, fishing poles, and guns, all of which I've seen destroy families. We won't even get into the money part.
Joe, that's interesting because I think we think more alike than you think. I just went back because I was laughing when you said that. Like the last sentence that I wrote right before I said, "Oh shoot, I got to get on with Joe." Quote word for word is never before in human history have so many people lived into the eighth and ninth decade of their lives. I was just writing like the exact thought that you were saying in my qualifying exams when I stopped to get on with you. So I was giggling a little bit when you said that, but you are right. It's such a driver of kind of like this larger demographic, right? Of people who are going through this subtle shift or this area of kind of like grade or impaired decision making. And, we're seeing so much more of an impact from, these exploitations and things occur because we have so many more people in that demographic. But I thought that was funny. I was like writing that exact sentence when I
It's going to
stopped.
be that's going to be a great paper, Latoya. That's what I'm thinking. No, but we think a lot alike. It's just your focus is you see people who are ripped off,
A lot.
right? And
Yes.
what I see comes from an Andy Stanley quotation. And Andy Stanley is my favorite pastor in the world. He's down in Marietta, Georgia, and he's Charles Stanley's son. If the name sounds familiar, but Andy says he's yet to see a problem where he hasn't been an active participant.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh yeah,
He is in the middle of every problem. Even when somebody is ripping
definitely.
you off, you had to click the link. When
You
somebody
have to
calls and says you've got
comply.
to go to
Yes.
Walmart to get the credit cards, you had to get in the car and you had to drive,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
And that,
I think that's where the prevention work comes in, right? And
yeah,
which is why, even though I see a lot of people that are ripped off, what I want ultimately is prevention. So that's understanding where the vulnerability is, because then you can put the safeguards or the guardrails in place, right, to prevent me from seeing so many people who are ripped off, which essentially is what savior bacon is, right? Kind of
exactly.
like call me before you get ripped off. We have to, I do what I do because we want to provide something to people who are ripped off. But I think we all hope that we can stop it before it gets there and understand what our part in it is and how, because we can't stop criminals from being criminals, right? But we
You,
can empower people to, be able to not kind of like participate actively and allow it, not allow it, but, open up the gates for it to happen, I think.
amen. And if you've been to the subtle shift classroom, and I don't know if any of you, it doesn't appear that many of you were in school before you came to Aging with Clarity. So in the school platform, there is a structure where there's a general post, and you watch me post there 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But then there's classrooms. And so the classroom, the first one is understanding the subtle shift. In each of those lessons, there's 6 lessons in the subtle shift. In each of them, except for the last, I give you a worksheet or something to do that you can apply to your lives to try to make this better. The guardrail is not on there. The guardrail's for you guys. You were here tonight. And so if you put in the chat room that you want the guardrail worksheet, Toddy or Tarna, one of the two, will get it emailed to you and make sure that you have it. And that's what the really kind of what the conversation is. If you go to the classroom, legacies lost, and I'm not a big fan of having to do that. But the legacy lost classroom is about understanding where Happy Thanksgiving was no longer happy, and legacies that were intended were left behind. We like to say we want to leave behind blessings, not burdens. And most of the time, when you watch somebody lose their financial dignity, it is over a bad conversation around spending, investing, or giving. And if you look at those are the 3 that we tend to talk about in Legacies Lost. Oh, Tarn, I see a lot of stuff going on in the chat room. What is there a question
Yep.
that we can work on?
Yep, Carla just asked if she could have that worksheet. So Carla, we'll get that worksheet to you. I don't think I have your email directly, Carla, but we will get that to you directly in school through a private message. And then we do also have another question from Angie. Angie, at the beginning of today's session, shared a little bit about how real this is happening in her life and how she interacts and helps folks in this phase. And she had asked this question: how can we help motivate people to plan, or ideally plan before the shift? My family was torn apart, and hear my clients say the same.
Yeah, she's like so many people that are in this space. To work in, I grew up working in nursing homes. Um, and at the VA home in Lafayette, Indiana, and other nursing homes, it takes a special soul, believe me, to work in that type of environment. It is not easy. Most of us that are in this space where we're trying to take care of people my age, your age, this group, most of us have had some trauma in our lives that have spurred that desire to try to be able um, to kind of help, if you will. So that is a normal, natural thing. Angie, to answer your question, the question really is, how do I motivate somebody to start planning ahead? Why they still have full capacity? The subtle shift has not kicked in any meaningful way. How do I go? And I would answer that in three ways. The first thing is, my trainer is 51 years old. She was at my house this morning, and she essentially asked, when should I start? And I said, well, yesterday would have been better. Obviously, yesterday's passed. So the correct answer is today or tomorrow. Let's get this started. I talked about that this morning, and the founding fathers sitting around discussing the idea of independence versus actually executing on that. You've got to do something, and minor is better than nothing. We have a propensity to believe as individuals that it's got to be perfect, that it's got to be complete, that it's got to be finished. And that's one of the worst attitudes that somebody can have in this arena. You get it started, you make it better later. It won't be perfect until the day you drop dead, because you're still going to be here, and it's got to be able to maneuver through the world that we live in, not just today, but also tomorrow. So get started would be number one. Number two, according to Latoya and Peter and the majority of people that I trust and respect in this environment, that cognitive change begins to occur somewhere around 52. And when I say cognitive change, I'm talking about a subtle shift, ever so slightly. What I have found in my life previously with a lot of different experiences is the more people who are open and willing to discuss it, the more that change can take place. This has to be an issue that is not hidden in the closet. It has to be an issue where people understand you're not broken. Nobody, not one of you would be surprised if I told you the thousands of miles that I'd hiked, if I told you that my knees didn't ache. You would all expect that. You've got a camera in front of you. You can clearly see my hair is not as brown as it once was. Our hair changes. And to believe that our brain, another organ in our body, does not change is an absolute mistake. We are not broken. Believe me, there is nothing wrong with Joe. And there's nothing wrong with those of you that are on the screen. But we have to get it started and talk about it. And the more people are willing to talk about it and be open about it, the more success we're going to have in getting it done. So here's the example that I give people. Some of you know me very, very well. So in December of 2017, 9 short years ago, I was 50 years old. And on Friday night at 5:30, the IRS finally gave us, IRS didn't, Congress did. Congress signed and changed the tax code, the largest tax code since 1986. It was 1,097 pages. I read it, much to my wife's chagrin, over the weekend, every single page. By Monday morning, I had strategies emailed to the team. At 4:30 on Monday morning, one of my CPAs texted me and it said, "Did you see the mistake?" And I go, "The mistake?" That the Washington CPA Society, that speaks to all the CPAs across the country, got it wrong. They presumed things that were going to be in the bill stayed in the bill, and that's not how the sausage gets made. So at 4:30 in the morning, we're emailing the CPA board in Washington, D.C. to tell them the mistake they made. That was yours truly at age 50. Fast forward to the big, beautiful bill. Now, I'm directly responsible for more than $1 billion. I have 41 people on my team, and I still haven't made it through the flippin' bill because I read 4 pages, I understand it, but I have to go back and read it again. It's not as intuitive as it once was. Now, for anybody to say that I'm not with it, that I have dementia, that I'm broken, or anything like that, you better run. But for me to try to tell you that I'm not the same person that that for me to try to say that I'm the same person at 59 that I was at 50 is a flat out fib. I think I have some new strengths, but I certainly I'm not able to do it the way that I did it before. And Angie, you're on mute if you're trying to talk to me, but um, I think
This is really
that's,
helpful. And it's interesting because I just turned 51 and all of these things are making so much sense now. I think we have a lot actually in similar background, but thank you. This
you're
is,
welcome.
and all of this is very motivational. This is my first attendance here and I really enjoy it.
Well,
Learning a
thank
lot.
you. Very
Thank you.
much appreciated. Just understand, and we've got to tell them that they have to understand we're not broken,
Yep.
right? This is a natural progression of life. And believe it or not, let me tell you something that's going to happen, Angie. If you've got kids or people that are around you, you want to know two surprising things that happen at 52?
What?
Here's why I love researchers. I would never get it. And I started giggling, Latoya, the other day. I'm walking Rupert, right? I'm walking, doing my lap around the circle. And I said, it is incumbent upon me to do something. And I realized I haven't used the word incumbent since I was on the debate team in high school, right? Two things happen that happen in this natural progression. Our vocabularies tend to increase 12 to 15%.
Hmm.
So we have gray hair, we're more experienced, we have more money, and suddenly we talk smarter. Now this is just like the it's everything wrapped up in a nutshell that says we have a problem, Houston, right? And on top of that, we become
Yeah.
more confident.
Yeah. Well, we just have the
Right?
experience and we are able to be more compassionate and empathetic. Even if you are an empath, you've got more experiences. And when you go through something like this, what you were describing earlier, it tore my family apart. I have a brother and sister I haven't talked to in a few years. Money was, yeah, it was a lot, but that was the least of it.
Yeah.
It ripped us apart. So I want
It
to help
breaks
other
my
people not I want to mitigate the risk for that going forward for other
we
people.
we we can certainly do some things that contain it in the solution side. But all right, thank you so much for speaking up and
Okay.
asking the
Thanks.
question. What
Thank
else
you.
do we have, Tarna, that we can hit on today?
Carla shared a comment. And it makes a lot of sense. And there's a lot there that you're probably going to unpack, but it's a little bit of a lob again. I'm very big on the medical protections. For example, removing fall hazards, being aware of elderly having urinary tract infections, which bring on cognitive issues. What I'm weak on is the getting your wishes passed on to your loved ones outside of the medical issues.
So we have to be careful because we have people from so many states. So let me give you a health one first. John Checky and I have a friend named JJ Virgin. Most of you will have never heard of her, but she is a rock star in the health and fitness space for way too affluent people, as some people would say. And the thing that she taught me is she said the biggest mistake that we make in gyms and health clubs is we give little old ladies 5 pound dumbbells and tell them that they're exercising and burning calories. That part of
No,
aging
no,
is
it's an hour.
part of aging is acknowledging that as we age, balance is one of those challenges that we have. You will fall. And when you fall, the question is your hand strong enough to break the fall? Or is it going to be your hip where you're going to break your hip, get pneumonia, and die? And so JJ, and actually it's her best friend that came up with it, makes ladies that go to gym that are in their 80s carry 25 and 30-pound dumbbells from one station to the next. Then they can work out with their 5-pound weights.
Hmm.
But she makes them carry the 25 to work on their grip so that when they fall, they're better. That's the one thing that I know from a health related size. She assures me that there'll be a day when I need to quit scuba diving. I'm not convinced. John would say no way. She would say there's going to be a day when my balance starts to go. Hadn't affected my golf game yet. I'm going to fight it as long as I possibly can. Now let's get to the how do we take care of our
Learn
stuff?
to, if you've not taken a rolling class or martial arts class, learn how to roll. About 3 years ago, I actually tripped over something. And by the time my wife said, John, you never fall, I was already up. But I'm going to suggest to you that balancing on one foot is a damn good idea. Do it in a small room so that when you start bouncing against the wall, you don't hurt yourself. And I'm not a big fan of having strong hands to break your fall because you break your blinking wrist. You have to learn to do the whole arm. I mean, the whole arm and your leg. Learn to fall. Go with somebody who teaches people of a certain age, well seasoned, on how to either roll, how to break a fall.
Hmm.
And to balance, I was talking to 80-something-year-old guys this morning, not making that up. And they were talking about, well, guy said, I have balance problems. And I did what I do. And he said, oh, you're in great shape. So, look, I practice this every ding dong day. That didn't just happen. So, practice your balance, get stronger legs and a stronger grip, and enjoy yourself. Enjoy your life. It's too late for some of us to die young.
Amen. All right. So on the other side, and I have to be careful with this because we're covered across the planet. Literally, we have people in Mexico, Colombia, a few people in the Far East. This issue matters to everywhere. The solution is a little bit different. So I write letters to my trust. I call them letters of intention. Now you have to be careful because there are 2 states now that have begun to recognize letters of intention as legal documents. That is not what I'm trying to accomplish. You have your legal documents, and then you have instructions for those people, i.e., my guardrail sheet. You have instructions for people that are going to help you. And you've got to be clear with things. So I have a very detailed process on how I make a decision. It's part of my guardrail. I can walk you through what you would consider to be a long process. I'm one of those crazy people in the world who think about my thinking. I will explain why if we don't have another question in a second. But I think about my thinking because I've watched my thinking attempt to change on its own. And I want the best of my thought process, not the one that seems the easiest. I want the best thinking that I can have. So in my trust, Carla, my trust protector has a instructions that are not age based. There's only one thing in my trust that has an age attached to it. And I talk about it a little bit in Legacies Lost. It's because I've seen a magical age do disastrous things, and I don't want to cross that line. But in those instructions, my trust protector is to sit down with me when I make a decision. My guardrail, just like I won't drink coffee at 4 after 4 p.m., my guardrail is that when I make a big decision, I have to write out my process that involves about 7 steps. My trust protector has the authority to say, when you did this, did you fill out your decision matrix? And my answer has to be yes. And I go through where I took the time, so there's no heavy breathing involved, there's no emotional response involved. I have the time to say, here were my thoughts about what I did. And it's their job to say, was my thinking right? Not was my decision right? I did a video on this earlier today. We herald people based on their results. We look at CEOs and innovators and even Thomas Edison and inventions in the light bulb, and we always give credence to the result, right? The challenge is in the world of academia and business, we give the credit of the result to a good decision being made. And granted, you can't make bad decisions, but it wasn't the decision that led to the result. It was the execution. It was getting something done from the decision that was made. So when I make a decision and I fill out my decision matrix, my trust protector, in my case, his name is Adam, has the authority to ask, did you fill out the sheet? Right? And I give him permission to see the sheet. He's my second eyes. He's allowed to know. He knows everything about me financially. That's his job. I ordained him that way. And if I didn't fill out the sheet, then he has the ability and the power to say, Joe, we're not spending the money, or we're not making the investment change, or we're not giving that much money to a brand new charity that you never heard of until last week on the TV. All of which are things that I have seen happen. That's how I do it that way. Go ahead.
Is this trust protector a legal obligation? Are you going to get into that more in the school thing,
When
or
when we
here, or?
when we do the workshop, I will introduce the concept of trust protector. And it is very much a legal tool that needs to be added to a document. So far, 38 states in the country allow trust protectors. There's 12 that are a little bit behind the eight ball. But in the states that allow for that, you certainly do it. But yes, we'll talk about it more then. But it's another part of the component. You'll hear me talk often about the 3 why component. When you're working on a solution for the legacy planning, it really involves 3 who's. Who are you and what do you own? Who do you want to get the money when you're gone, as in dead gone? 3, who's in charge of making sure that happens if you can't? 4 is how. How do you want them to receive the money? And 5 is what about you while you're still here? Right. And I have to make this very clear to people who comment on my Facebook stuff. Um, I hope that I pass being fully in charge of everything that I have. I did not build guardrails because I want to hit them. I did not build guardrails because I want to try them out. When I'm driving my car, whatever speed I'm going, I have no intentions of hitting those rascals. But I'm glad they're there when I go around a sharp curve on the Dragon down in Tennessee.
Carla, the workshop that Joe is referring to is going to be next Tuesday, July 7th at this same place and same time. Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I find the school platform a little hard to navigate, and then not knowing exactly what the different terms that you use for different things are. But I am trusting that over time, this is all going to become a bit more apparent.
It comes easier, and you're not the only one that struggles with school. It is a new technology and a new platform, and I wish there was a better way for us to be able to do it. It once we get it, it'll be easier. But just take your time with it. We'll get you through.
And thank you
Thanks.
for the idea of definitions, Carla, because yes, there is a lot to
Yes.
learn.
Thanks, Carla.
So,
You just gave me another job. I can see the email coming now.
And
We'll make it
I
up.
would like to introduce my husband. He did come. This is Larry over here with
Hi, Larry.
GC.
Hi, Larry.
Hello there.
Thanks for joining, you guys.
Hopefully we're here as a team. I mean, we are here as a team.
That's the idea, to be there to be together as a team. And I will tell you this, since Larry's on there and he can hear it. One of the problems with cognitive decline, or what I like to call the subtle shift, is remember we are not broken, right? 7 to 12% of us will get a diagnosis for cognitive impairment. 7 to 12%. In that case, there is a genetic challenge, there is a problem. And yes, if you get it, Larry, there is a good chance Carla can spot it and say, honey, we need to go see the doc. The problem with the subtle shift is that doesn't happen. Have you ever gone to a reunion? We had our 40th year class reunion this year, and those suckers looked old. Right? I'm looking at my friends, thinking about them being 18, going, man, they are old. And then I look in the mirror and I am clearly not old. I do not match this group of people. All right. And what happens is I see me every day, and your spouse sees you every day. So 90% of the people that I take care of tell me if I was losing it, Joe, my wife would tell me, she tells me everything else I do wrong. Right? I hear that all the time. And the problem is she won't know because she's going with you. All right. That's the
We're in
way
the same boat.
cognitive, yeah, we're in the same boat.
You sound just like my parents that are now deceased. Oh my gosh.
I'll
No,
mute
but
us now.
you make a really good point. When it's right in front of you every day, you don't. And so in Six Sigma, they talk about it's called a different lens. So when you've got somebody that's unbiased or somebody that maybe hasn't been around that person, it's a new lens that you're looking through. So I think you just brought up a really good point.
You can add to that. I mean, Six Sigma is a beautiful engineering term if you're not familiar with it, to separate signal from noise. I'll try not to add that to the definition page, Carla. But that's Six Sigma is a wonderful concept to help people understand what's real. The challenge is, especially when it happens day to day, what's truly signal appears to be noise on a minute by minute, day by day basis. And so people begin to justify it, skip over it, ignore it until something problematic really does begin to occur.
Makes
One of
sense.
the things that happens in the decision matrix is one of the tests is to ask your best friend about a decision that you are trying to make. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be your trust protector. It doesn't have to, but ask your best friend a decision that you're trying to make, not your husband, not your wife, not yourself. And the reason for that is when the human mind has to make a decision, it is prone to emotion and feelings. We started this way, right? Your best friend, in theory, if you talk to the Latoyas of the world, they will tell you that really good shrinks can tell everything about you by talking to the 5 people closest to you that are not your spouse. Because we tend to hang around people who know us, love us, have similar interest, but they don't have the same pain and they don't have the same emotion. So when you're trying to make a decision, whether it's to move or buy a house or buy a car, or whether you should go buy these tickets at Walmart because somebody's going to arrest you at the local sheriff's office, whatever that is, if you can ask your best friend the question before you make a decision, they will do that. According to the smarter people than me, they will do that without any emotion and pure logic and reasoning. And at least it gives you another buffer point to protect you from responding too quickly. It is 6:59. I will hang here as long as people want to hang, but I always stay on time. And so if any of you need to leave, do not think in any way,
Hey,
shape, or form that you will offend me or anything else. If you've got to
Ron,
run, you got to run.
Ron, real quick. Sorry, this is Angie. How can we actually, let me back up, reference your tools, if you will. So I mentioned earlier what I'm trying to help people with, and in terms of building like a toolbox in different areas. Can we, can I market your, like this video, for example?
Well, thank you for saying that. The video, this is my gift back to what 2,500 families have taught me over 38 years. There's nothing that I said here that I can take credit for. It's what other people who cared for me, loved me, and educated me through their life experience gave me. So you can take anything I talked about here and give it away. Tarna or Toddy will send you a link if you want to get the toolkit so that you can understand what's in it. You can make that decision. That's part of our solution. But As far as this part, making people aware of what's happening with a subtle shift, use the video however it helps other people. You have my permission.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Angie, this will be available too on YouTube at some point in the future, not right away, but within about a week. So you'll be
Great.
able to share it with them that there. On the
Wonderful.
Facebook page, there's little clips, but of course that doesn't really expand the way that Joe has. But from hearing what you shared when you first joined this evening and then some of your questions in the classroom, in the practical tools section, the quiet phase of aging guide checklist and workbook are really helpful. The checklist might be one worth checking out to start, and it takes that person, it helps that person go through the series of the thinking to gauge a little bit more of where you are, where they are. But definitely check out the practical tools inside of the classroom, and those are downloadable PDFs that you could print and take to some of your clients' homes
Yes.
or email
Thank you
them.
so much. Thank you. Be in
Absolutely.
touch.
Awesome.
Folks, I'm ready for my final sip. Unless you've got something, I want to tell you, I appreciate you being part of the community. Bring your questions, share. Next week, we're having the workshop. We scheduled it at 6 o'clock, and then you guys wanted this at 6 o'clock. We're doing both at the same time. I guess next week we'll talk about some of the possible solutions that you can use there next week. Do not get confused with next week and what normally happens. This is what I intend to have happen, whether I'm here or at our place in Mexico. We're just going to talk about what aging with clarity is really about. Sometimes we'll be blessed with Latoya, sometimes with Peter. And Latoya, I truly thank you for taking the time. I know how precious it is. Spend some time with your daughter and do well on your stuff. Everybody have a wonderful 4th of July. It is 250 years, and one of my favorite memories is the bicentennial back in 1976, being at a bowling alley with my mom and my cousins and my brother, and watching that all happen and transpire. So getting to do it now is a whole new thing. You all have a wonderful week, and you know how to get a hold of us. Keep sending questions. Thank you so much for your time and energy, folks.